Hey guys, welcome to today's Euro 2020 report, day two of the championships. And do you know what? I think under the circumstances, I'm not going to be making jokes tonight. The events of today, what happened to Christian Eriksen in Denmark's game. I think it just puts everything in perspective, really, of football life. And yeah, it was obviously very shocking to hear that news earlier. And obviously, my prayers are with him and with his family, with his wife, his friends, all the rest of it. And luckily, it looks like he's going to be fine, that he's pulling through, he's now stabilised. But yeah, just to hear that news earlier, because it was actually news for me, because it's sort of funny how that sort of works. Because there was three games on today and a decision not to watch that game, the middle game, the Denmark-Finland game. So actually, when I heard that news later, it was, more of a shock, but also, I guess, I was sort of relieved that I didn't have to watch it, because that would have been a very hard thing to watch. And from everything I've heard from other people, it was one of the most awful things you can see unfold on your TV, because, and I'll get to this in a minute, apparently the footage and what they showed was a lot. They had to watch. The coverage showed him having CPR. The coverage also showed his wife reacting to it, which obviously was just too much. Just awful and terrible and very exploitative. I'm gonna make no bones about that from the off. So yeah, a rough day, very hard to take, very shocking. God, it looks like Christian Eriksen is going to be fine. Obviously, he's a brilliant player, very talented, very important to the Danish side, and plays the game in the right spirit. But beyond all else, he's obviously a human being, and yeah, because of his age, because of not being particularly old or anything, to hear that news was really sort of scary. But obviously, he's a very important, not just as a player to Denmark, but I'm sure as a captain and as a personality in the dressing room. And they seem like a very tight knit unit. Another thing I did hear was the way the players sort of rallied around him and protected him and just got around him. So that sounds very like a very great sort of team thing for them to do, and very supportive of him, because sometimes in those situations you just freeze. But that sounds like a great thing for them to do. But yeah, definitely thoughts go out with him, and there does have to be question marks asked about the BBC in this situation, because, as I said, not only did not only were viewers sort of shown the CPR, but they were also shown his wife's reaction, and yeah, that's as I said, exploitative, and it's going too far, and just for the TV viewers, to be shown that, a real sort of turn off, really just something you don't want to see, and something which really should be private and should have been left out. You can almost understand to a certain extent them showing what happened. The fact that there was CPR, because I think you could make an argument that the viewers would want to know what was happening. They would be concerned, but yeah, to cut on his wife to actually show her reactions, that just crossed the line, really. Now I know there's some debate on this, because it might not have been the BBC's actual footage, because a lot of times at these international tournaments they do rely on like the host, where the game's coming from, to show the footage. So from that point of view, it wasn't the BBC's footage, I wouldn't have thought. But also, as others have said, I think they could have made the decision at any time to cut away and go back to the studio. And I think that would have been the right choice under the circumstances. So I think for them to make the choice not to do that, I mean, who knows? Maybe they were a bit shell shocked, and obviously it's not something that happens very often, if at all. But yeah, it was the wrong decision, and you have to question their motivations in that. There has to be sort of big questions asked of the production team, and that's all I'll say. I think really they should release a statement this week and sort of show that they're taking that seriously. I don't want this to become another media witch hunt with the BBC, which I know is a popular thing right now. I think the focus should be on that particular production team and questions asked about, I mean, whoever made the decision not to cut back to the studio. And I know Gary Lineker has already apologised tonight. But looking at the game itself, obviously the result, Finland, who got the win 1-0 and second half goal. So a bit of an upset there, really, and a boost for them, a big win in their first ever European Championship match. So I guess well done to them, and it sort of throws the group pretty wide open. Now, the match of the day was definitely the Wales-Switzerland game. Obviously, after Wales' success and surprise run to the semi-finals 4 years ago, or 5 as it is now, really, then, some pressure on them, and they are in a very tough group where they are sort of underdogs. I think this year the pressure is off a bit because with the added teams and stuff, you will get a lot more teams advancing from the group stage, so you will get a situation where third place is enough. And I know that does apply in Wales's group in their case. Wales had lost today. I think that would have given them some hope. That, hey, if we put in a performance against Turkey, there's definitely weaknesses, and that maybe they're not in the best sort of shape. But you know what? I mean, it's fair to say they definitely rode their luck today, the Welsh. I mean, Switzerland were by far the better team. I sort of expected them to have too much quality for the Welsh. I think for Wales, the game, their strategy just didn't pay off. They were sitting back a lot and then looking for counter attacks, looking for maybe something from Gareth Bale from set pieces, which never really came off. There was sort of a small moment with a free kick, which was a good delivery for him. It was the wrong angle really to have a shot, so he did bend it into the box. Maybe could have been sharper reactions from the players in the box in getting on the end of it, but Bale and Ramsey didn't really get into the game, not as attacking forces. I think Ramsey actually did a pretty good job in midfield of being sort of, a more defensive player and getting back, but I think because it was such a direct game from the Welsh today. Obviously, they had a bit of a change with Moore going up front, a big sort of target man, and he was one of their best players. So I mean, ultimately, that decision for the manager, he was a real force at both ends and had some of the best moments as well as scoring the crucial goal, which was a brilliant header from him, because he'd had one earlier where the keeper made a really smart save. One thing I enjoyed about this game is that it did feel quite traditional in the sense you had a lot of physicality, but it was honest. I mean, it was definitely a clean game for the most part, and you also had some good crosses into the boxes, and both goals were headers. And just as quite an old school fan, I do enjoy seeing that. It's obviously good to have technical football and kind of breathtaking passing moves and goals, but I am a bit old school. I do enjoy a good, ball into the box and a big centre forward getting on the end of it. Or Switzerland dominated much of the game after a decent start from Wales, but Switzerland just had too much movement for them by and large, and a lot of good play down the flanks. And I think their pressing game was just very good and just had too much for Wales. I mean, obviously in the end, not in the result, because Wales did get get a point which could be a very crucial point. But I was impressed with Switzerland. I mean, I guess they just couldn't press home the advantage totally, because obviously Wales getting in half time at 0-0 was a, a good result for them because they were sort of on the ropes. But when Switzerland got that goal, you again feared for Wales, and you thought they might press it home a little more than they did. I guess the credit goes to the manager, the Welsh manager today, because he did get his selection right. He also made a tough choice with the goalkeeper, and he made, at one point, a real world-class save which kept Wales in it. So playing the bigger centre forward up front, going more direct, in the end that paid off, and obviously more, as I said, had an influence in both boxes. So that was good to see. Poor performance overall, and they were mostly outclassed by the Swiss. I think I give the manager credit, and I also give the players some credit because of the way they dug in, because they could have just, totally capitulated, but they didn't, and I can't say they deserved the draw. I think Switzerland were easily better, but there you have it. I'm pleased Wales got the draw, and they've got a decent chance now of getting out of the group. Their next game is against Turkey, so that one's going to be key, because you don't really want to go into the last game against Italy needing something. Obviously, if Wales can get a win next time, then that should pretty much be them going through under the circumstances. Another thing to say about the game is that the atmosphere was really dead. I mean, it was in Azerbaijan, and really the locals didn't really show up in numbers. It wasn't a sellout. I know one of the commentators mentioned them selling, tickets on the street for like £25 to try and get fans in, and I think that's the other side of this whole experiment with it being staged in like 11 different countries or whatever, is you're going to get games like this where it's neutral ground and neither are a home team disservice, but you don't think of that as being a massive football in country. And yeah, I guess they just didn't have the appetite for it. I think it's fair to say that that was the game of the day. It was one-way traffic in the later game, with Belgium getting a comfortable 3-0 win over Russia, who, hey, don't remind me, folks, that I predicted Russia might actually get a draw. I was just going for the hipster vibe, okay? I just wanted to put it out there and just be a bit different. I mean, I knew realistically Belgium probably would win, but there, it was one-way traffic. It was a very kind of bland and dull game. There wasn't that much of an atmosphere once again. I mean, if I was going to be more sort of funny tonight, I would be tearing the ITV coverage to shreds, but there's plenty of time for that over the next few weeks. But Belgium were very strong and a good start, but really they didn't need to do much. I think from a Russia point of view, the disappointment would be how sort of route one and how basic the Belgium goals were. You had a tap in off the keeper at one point. Lukaku just dominated. He was sort of his old self. He just had his way with the defenders way too easily. The third goal he scored was sort of classic Lukaku. It's the sort of goal you've seen him score many times for Everton and other, teams. But yeah, too easy. And I think because it was 2-0 quite early in the match, then the match just sort of went a bit dead after that. Still have my doubts over whether this will be their tournament, because I do think they have this history of not quite doing it when it really counts, when you have the big games. I don't know what it is really. Maybe there are weaknesses at the back which can be exploited. Maybe they are a bit too soft-centred. And obviously now they do have a more aging squad, so it sort of feels like maybe now or never for this generation. You would probably make them one of the favourites, but I think there is those old question marks. So that's my Euro 2020 report for the day. It's very different sort of tone, really, under the circumstances, but my thoughts do go out to Christian Eriksen and his family, friends, and yeah, just relieved that it looks like he's going to pull through, but definitely puts things in perspective. So I'll return tomorrow with another Euro 2020 report. Obviously, England making their debut in the tournament against the Croatia, who of course beat them in the semi-finals of the World Cup a few years back, and that's Croatia are no pushovers. I don't think you can underestimate them. So certainly the game of the day, at least on paper, Croatia against England. I'll go for a narrow England win on that one. I can see there being a few goals, but England just to win. I don't think there'll be much in it, and it certainly wouldn't surprise me if Croatia got something. But there you have it. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.